Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I thank you so much for joining us here on the program as we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And on that quick note, I will just mention that the book Choices, 5 Steps for Life is now available at Amazon.com in hardcover, paperback, Kindle. The Audible is on its way. I'm working on it, narrating it and getting it ready for you to listen to. So I hope you'll get yourself a copy. And with that, I'm going to jump right into our program today. We had this woman on our program not long ago, folks. Matter of fact, it was the month of September. We were talking about the 40th anniversary of the 40th anniversary of the celebration of the UN International Day of Peace. And there is no better time than right now for our world to come together and unite with the hope for a hope of world peace. And my guest is returning here on the program, and her name is Tezikiah Gabriel. And Tezikiah, thank you so much for being with us here again here on the program. It's great to have you here to sort of recap and a look ahead as well. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me back, Richard. I'm delighted to be here.
And of course, last time we were together, we talked about a lot of different things, which I'm sure we will do again. You are the executive director for Pathways to Peace. And the website, folks, if you'd like more information, we'll give that out right now. Pathwaystopeace.org. That's pathwaystopeace.org. And of course, she's on Instagram and Facebook and all that good stuff. She's the executive director, as I mentioned, of Pathways to Peace, a UN peace messenger organization in consulting with the ECOSOC, and she works in partnership with Peacebuilders locally and globally to build a culture of peace. When we talk about that, let's define terms a little bit. What is the Pathways to Peace and Tezikiah's definition of peace? What's that going to look like?
Yes. Well, certainly we see pockets of it in many places in our world, and also we see peace in those around us, in our relationships, in our interactions. And so my definition of peace is as diverse as anyone who would come on your show, I'm sure, Richard, and as diverse as those listening. So I would say that my definition of peace is that it starts within. It's an inside job, that it's important for us to nurture our own inner peace. And when we do that, that radiates out into all of our relationships, into all of our interactions, and into our communities and our work in the world. And so at Pathways to Peace, we say that each of us is a pathway to peace, regardless of where you come from, what your background is, what your discipline is, that you are a pathway to peace. So owning that and recognizing that is a first step in embracing it and activating it in our own lives and in the world.
I remember a phrase that I heard over and over and over again every Sunday in Mass at certain part where they would, you'd say, turn to your neighbor and offer them the sign of peace.
That's right.
And sometimes it was a handshake. Sometimes it was a hug. If you were too far away, pews away, you'd wave and peace be with you, peace be with you.
Yes.
And I know that the saying of Gandhi is quite popular, be the peace that you want to see in the world.
That's right.
I've heard it said, too, on a more metaphysical level, that the challenges that we face today, and we could sit here and list them, but I think people are very much aware of what's going on in the world, are a reflection
yes,
of us, even as individuals, not necessarily collectively, but definitely as individuals, on the inside. Even you might even put it this way, that the turmoil outwardly is a representation of the turmoil inwardly.
That's exactly right. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And as a matter of fact, Richard, you know that even science bears that out today, whether it's quantum physics or heart math institutes research on the heart brain science. We know that's what is taking place within us, translates to what is sent out into our world. And so a very good friend of mine, when I was interviewing her, I said, so what do you think is the cause of all the war and conflict? And she very simply said, if we experience war and conflict within ourselves, then that's projected out to create war and conflict within our world. And so, yes, Richard, I think that is so important. The only thing I would add is, and this is in agreement and expanding on what you said, is that we need to recognize, and this is what the science tells us these days, which merges with spirituality and indigenous wisdom, by the way, that says that that we are in co-creation with our universe, and that we are constantly creating. And the only thing that I would add is that I always encourage folks and myself to be intentional about that, because if we're not intentional, we're going to end up creating things that we may not wish to exist in our own lives and in the lives of others. So conscious co-creation is an important part of that concept we're talking about, becoming more intentional about the fact that we are constantly creating, and creating goodness, creating compassion, creating peace, and all of those other good things.
Just celebrated, as I mentioned before, the 40th anniversary of the Day of Peace, as declared, if you will, by the UN. And I'd like for you to share with us your observations of that day, specifically in San Francisco, where yes. I think it was probably more of a day-long event, but there was that moment at noon, California time, and noon across the country, where and we even ran on the station for 60 seconds, more of a public service announcement, recognizing World Day, the Day of Peace. Talk to us about how that went.
Yes, well, it was beautiful, Richard. All of it was incredible. But let me start with the PeaceWave, which is that minute of silence, moment of peace at 12 noon in every time zone. And that originated coming out of the UN's resolution establishing the International Day of Peace, which actually that resolution, easy for me to say, that resolution took place in 1981. But in 1982 and 1983, the only kind of recognition of that was at the General Assembly, when the General Assembly began its work with a moment of silence. So in 1983, because Pathways to Peace and our beloved founder, Avon Madison, helped civil society establish, working with the United Nations, establish that International Day of Peace, that there was great disappointment that it wasn't being globally celebrated. And so in 1983, Pathways to Peace entered into a year-long process to create the first international celebration of the International Day of Peace, with 40 countries involved, and it took place in 1984 in San Francisco. So we returned this year, 40 years later, to honor that anniversary and to launch another global International Day of Peace. And 40 years ago, that moment of silence, that PeaceWave, was the centerpiece of the celebration in San Francisco. And everything stopped. Cash registered stopped. Those were the days when cash registers would ding, 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 and telephone operators stopped. And people in businesses stopped their businesses. The newspapers and the newscast stopped. Radio news stopped for that 12 noon moment of silence. And the newspapers reported that it was the silence heard around the world, because in all 40 of those countries, everyone paused at 12 noon in their own time zone. So, of course, Pathways to Peace has always said that we need to make Peace Day every day. So we encourage that people not wait for the anniversary of the International Day of Peace, which is September 21st, not wait for that to pause at 12 noon, to envision, to hold a vision, or to hold silence for peace. And so that did occur in our incredible celebration on September 21st at the Civic Center Plaza in San Francisco. And it also occurred in the global broadcast. And so our event in San Francisco was globally broadcast with 14 other major cities around the world, all of them celebrating the International Day of Peace, and all of them, Richard, pausing at 12 noon to hold that minute of silence, moment of peace, that PeaceWave. So it was a dramatic moment around our planet. And our HeartMath Institute people occasionally have measured the electromagnetic field that's created on those days. And so we're waiting to see just how we lifted the frequency of peace on that day altogether. And so what started as a handful of people in 1981, when the resolution was passed, is now estimated to be 3 billion people around our world that celebrate the International Day of Peace in one way or another. So yes, yes, yes. And our event was incredible. I wish you could have been there, Richard. You would have loved it. And thank you for your honoring of the PeaceWave by your PSA, but also you contributed that sweet, very informative, short video for us that we have now on our website. So thank you, thank you, thank you for your contributions to peace every day, and to your contribution of peace for our event.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for the opportunity. It's one of those areas that I know a lot of folks, they do tend to think about the impact that they're going to make in the world. And I remember growing up and wondering, am I going to make a big impact or a little impact? And even a conversation I had with a friend of mine, I still remember this guy. We were in high school together, and we were sometimes not well behaved when we were together. But we were sitting around one evening, and I can't remember. I think it might have been maybe at his mom's house. We were sitting one evening talking, and for some reason, we were getting really philosophical and actually trying to address that question. And I said, I wonder, big fish or little fish, that kind of thing, a big impact. And then he chimes in. He says, "Oh yeah, I already know what my role is going to be, and it's going to be big. It's going to be really big." Well, if it's going to be really big, and I hope he's still alive, he might want to, get on the stick, because I haven't heard from him since high school. So, but I know that we contemplate that. And even as you were talking about the conflicts around the world and the representation of the outer and the inner, I don't know if any of the other listeners felt this or not, but it's sort of a mixed feeling of, oh, okay, then just do a little inner work and work through those kinds of things. But at the same time, it's like, oh, okay, so now I got to be honest and really take a look at myself, my inner part, and say, am I really happy? Am I really doing what I love doing? And this is a question for the you plural, not just specifically me, Richard Dugan. Is my life going the direction that I want it to? Certainly, the world, is going in the direction it's going, whether we want it to or not. That's the direction it's going, and trying to understand it. And I guess the best way is, again, to do that inner searching as we promote the 2020s, the decade of perfect vision, and having people go within. So it's sort of a mixed emotional bag of, oh, goody, and then, oh boy, because it's like you'd like to think after so many years of doing this, that, and the other thing that you've worked through that stuff, but there's always more. It's like the peeling of an onion.
It is.
Are there organizations, are there programs, are there opportunities that you can talk to us about where people can, aside from, obviously including, but aside from the Day of Peace, that we can begin that process? And I have to ask this part of it too, whether, if we're in a relationship, is it incumbent upon us to share that process with the other person? I mean, it's like, yeah, you want to be able to share all kinds of stuff with this person that you're sharing your life with. But at the same time, sometimes it can be so personal. It can be so, deep sometimes, that there is the possibility of sort of being distracted by the outer expression, recognition, awareness of what you're personally going through, that you get distracted, and then you don't go where you need to go to heal what needs to be healed. I know that's a tall order, but...
Well, I love all of those pieces that you raised, and I'm not sure I'll remember all of them, but I do remember your last couple of questions, Richard, and you can take me back to any of those others when you choose. And again, this is the point at which I can only share my own inner thoughts and opinions. Mm-hmm. And that what I've recognized is that every single person has their own process, their own way of doing their inner work. And I so honor and trust that whatever your path is that you're on, that you continue to look within, even about how you work that process. And so I'll just share my own thoughts and feelings are that it's a little bit influenced, maybe not a lot, but a little bit influenced by whether you're by nature an introvert or an extrovert. And there is this saying that if you don't know what an introvert is thinking, you haven't asked. If you don't know what an extrovert is thinking, you haven't listened, because those extroverts tend to be the verbal processors who what they think is what they say. And of course, there are divisions of that. We can be some of this and some of that. The introverts kind of want to ponder within before they put anything outwardly. They're going to think about it first, where for most extroverts, their thinking almost immediately turns into being verbal about that. So for me, I am a natural introvert and a trained extrovert. Trained because my life has involved public speaking and being in the public domain. But the way that I get my energy is because that's how we define introversion and extroversion, is really by how we draw our energy. As an extrovert, you draw your energy from who's around you and speaking and talking, and that energizes you. As an introvert, I draw my energy from solitude, going within. That's what nurtures me and most introverts. So for me, I have viewed my own, I'll call it my spiritual journey or my soul's evolution, has been quite private, although I do have close friends who will honor that journey, not make me explain it too much, or not think they can fix it, or that they need to change my mind, but do accept me and accept my journey. And I find great value in sharing my journey with those individuals. But I would say you're so right, what you said earlier about most people here, that yes, I have to do my inner work. And it's like, oh, I have to do my inner work, or oh, I have to do my inner work, to rephrase what you said. But it doesn't have to be painful, okay? I would say that my own soul's journey has been quite joyful, because I believe we're given this opportunity on this life's journey to discover who we really are, our own true nature, as the Eastern traditions say, who we are intended to be, to kind of strip away all those facades, those cultural programming that kind of shaped and informed who we think we should be, and instead be able to discover who we really are. That is a fascinating journey. And I always feel that task is its own reward, because discovery is so inherently interesting, especially when it's about ourselves. But it does begin with acceptance, just accepting who we are, accepting and loving where we've been, kind of healing with love, all of those things where we feel we need forgiveness for, accepting those, loving those into healing, and allowing ourselves to take that journey of self-awareness. And I do so agree with you that everyone is, I'll use your term, searching for meaning. And everyone wishes to have meaning in their lives, regardless of where they've come from and what they're currently doing.
Yeah.
And I believe people also yearn for peace in their heart of hearts, even our world leaders who appear to be so invested in war. I think in their heart, and I know in their soul, they yearn for peace, because that's where we came from, and that's where we're going back to.
You know,
I hope I answered stuff at least.
You did. Thank you. No, that was wonderful. My wife and I were watching a movie. I'm going to go ahead and give the title. I don't recommend watching it, but nonetheless, it was called Rift, R-I-F-T. And the whole premise of the movie was based on revenge. Mm-hmm. And when it was over, I says there was a waste of a couple of hours. Yes. Not criticizing her or myself, just that was a waste of a couple of hours of movie footage and acting and all so forth, because it seems as though that seems to be the modus operandi, if you will, for a lot of people, especially in this country, but globally for that matter, as if getting revenge, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, makes the hurt that you have suffered go away. It doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It only makes it worse. Mm-hmm. And it makes it worse for more people, because now you have affected the lives of others who were involved. And the premise of the movie basically was that the son of this arms dealer his father was seeking revenge for the death of his father, who was engaged in essentially illegal activity, but blamed the guy who, the officer, the FBI agent who killed his father, blamed him for his father's death, and so was going to make the rest of his life miserable. And I just thought, you know what? We make our own lives miserable sometimes. We don't need help from somebody else.
That's right.
But that seems to be certainly, and I don't care for those kinds of movies myself. Mm-hmm. Now, that's just not my thing. I don't like conflict. I don't like the drama. I don't like. Somebody said to me, "Aren't you willing to fight for?" Da da da. I says, "I'm not willing to fight with."
That's right.
I just don't want to go there. Because it doesn't. It's some say, well, in every relationship, a good relationship, you fight. It's like, how is that a good relationship?
Yes.
Because it's so damaging to the soul. My belief is that. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about the repair job. Certainly going within and going through the self-inquiry and and all those kinds of things. And so now you've found the source, at least at present, because again, it's like an onion. You peel one away, you peel one layer away, and another one's exposed, and so on and so forth. But let's talk about the repair job that we each need to go through that process. Maybe you can share a little, if you're able to do so, with the repair job that you have been doing over your lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And I loved what you had to say, Richard. And it may have been Gandhi or another that said, an eye for an eye leaves both of us blind. Mm-hmm. And that's so true. It serves no good purpose. And the damage that is done, as you've spoken about, is devastating. Yeah. So I will talk about, and probably mentioned in our previous in my previous visit, that from a very early age, I knew I was a peace builder. It was just my path. It wasn't a choice I made, but from my early beginnings, I intuitively chose to enact justice in my own child's mind as I perceived it, but always out of a good intention to support others who did not have all of the privileges or in the moment the opportunity to help themselves that I did. And so in my own life, there have been some tools, I'll say, and some messages that have really helped me heal my, certainly my brokenheartedness, as well as the conflicts that have come up in my life with others. My family history is such that I was orphaned at a very young age, and I was sexually abused as a child and physically abused, and then was a victim of domestic violence in my marriage. So when I very seldom talk about those things, because as soon as I do, people around me want, and it's all very well intended, but they want to make me a victim and say, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you, and how can I help you? And Richard, I'm not a victim. I really recognize all of those past experiences as contributing to who I am today and what I know to be my own truth, which is everything is for me and nothing is against me. And so my own healing processes have been to recognize that there's a greater good here that I might not be aware of, a greater plan, that everything is for me and nothing is against me, and that the people I meet in my life that we'll call trigger, I hate that word, but that prompt an emotional response have something to teach me. And so even though my immediate response might be to get my back up and become defensive, that it only takes me a few breaths now to recognize that I need to pay attention, because there is a lesson here that I need for my own soul's evolution. And so, and then, in the moment, and I have gotten better and better at this, which means that those things, it's not that those things don't come up, but there's a shorter response to them now in a positive light. I don't wallow in my own suffering, in that what you kind of implied, and I know to be true, is that we do create our own suffering. We do that by how we interpret what circumstances are coming into our lives, be it through people or other circumstances, how we interpret those, how we reframe those, and how we use those for our own soul's evolution or to stop us in our tracks. And I really recognize that there are times, this happened to me a few weeks ago, where somebody really, in my perceived mindset, somebody really hurt my feelings. And so I made a choice to wallow in that over a weekend. Okay? I knew what I was doing. I knew I could heal it by saying, what is it here that I need to look at and learn? And then, of course, there are ways to heal that. For me, it usually comes through healing practices, through breathing, through meditative journey, through music, through walking in the woods, whatever it happens to be. I can make that choice. And in this case, it was just a matter of recognizing that what had been said, that I perceived it to hurt my heart. So I just imagined my heart healing. But it is a choice. And it's really hard to believe that when we believe that we're powerless. But I know that I have power. I know that you have power. I know that everyone listening has power, and that we're making choices about how we respond to what's happening around us. And I would encourage everyone to do what they need to do to take back their power, to stand in that power, to speak their own truth, if that's what's needed for healing, but ultimately to recognize that they are divine. They are divine.
We're talking with Tezikiah Gabriel, Executive Director for Pathways to Peace. Pathwaystopeace.org is the website. Hope you'll go there and find out more about the work that she and the organization are doing. And this is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, with Gabriel, Tezikiah Gabriel, or Tez, if you will, Executive Director of Pathways to Peace. Pathwaystopeace.org is the website. And of course, we're talking about not only the just past 40th anniversary of the Day of Peace, and we're talking about a lot of other things too, in terms of how to get back into a state of peace. One of the issues that I know a lot of other people face is self-judgment over. It's almost like what you were talking about in terms of your, the way you phrased it. I love what my first general manager used to call a pity party. And I would get very frustrated and everything because of the situation at hand. She says, here's what I want you to do. I want you to hold off on the pity party right now. I want you to go ahead and take care of the situation. And then when you're done, if you want to, you can go over in the corner and have your little pity party. Exactly. So she gave me permission to do that.
Yes.
And I've tried to remember that. And like you, not always. And and there are times when I think I'm doing something wrong, and so forth. And it's more from the perspective of I want to resolve this for the last time. I don't want to have to keep going back. And yet sometimes it's not up to me because it involves someone else. And unless they are willing to move on, unless they have said, I don't want to go there anymore, they may bring it up again. And then that, of course, brings up all of the old stuff, just like before.
Yes.
And it's almost as if you never escape it. And you talked about choices. And of course, my book, Choices, is now out, 5 Steps for Life. And it talks about being discerning over what and who you allow in your life. And the biggest challenge, I think, for a lot of folks is the fear of letting go of, and in some instances, relationships. That if I could only either A, convince this person to change, to let this go, and so forth, I would be doing so much better. Or because we can't control other people, we don't control other people, I need to distance myself from this person. And especially if it's in a close relationship, that's a hard one. especially if you've been there for a long, long time and the other person somehow over the years has changed, and everyone has the right to change.
Yes.
But it becomes more of a challenge to be around that person. And yet you don't, I'm about to say something that I just will have to take back. Um, you don't make them feel any particular way, but at the same time, it's like you want to say, well, you don't want to hurt them. Well, you can't hurt them. They choose to be hurt.
Yes.
But with that in mind, trying to be sensitive, trying to be compassionate, but at the same time, you got to take care of you. You got to take care of self, right?
Everything starts and ends with us.
Yeah.
And so that's both the good news and the bad news for a lot of people. Because it does mean then that we can, the good news is we accept ourselves for who we are, all the warts, all of that sort of thing. We accept that. For me, people will say, and you forgive yourself. For me, that's acceptance. They're kind of the same things.
Yeah.
Because if you bring love into loving yourself and accepting who you are and what you've done, then that's forgiveness, self-forgiveness. And loving yourself is the most important thing you can do. It's very powerful. And so that's the good news. The bad news is that in accepting yourself, because, we talked earlier about, the inner being projected into the outer, that again, we can't change anyone else. And in most cases, we can't change the circumstances around us, but we always have to be aware of what is in our own self-interest. Now, this feels really selfish for a whole lot of people, but it is what we are called into, and it comes with responsibility. So what that means, if you're in relationship, is that you project out that acceptance to others. Those people are who they are. That's the language we can use in our mindset. They are not going to change. So then we have a couple of choices. We can just accept that is who they are and that there's not going to be a change and choose to love them anyway. Or we choose to remove ourselves because it's damaging to us to have them in our lives. And we cannot, because we are sacred, because we are holy, because we are divine, we cannot allow ourselves to be damaged. And that is a choice we make too. But that goes even deeper. So that inner work really is the inner work and may or may not have anything to do with the people in your life or the circumstances in your life, but it will bring you into your own true nature, who you really are, at any point in time, because it is, I agree with you, we think we've arrived, and then, we have the opportunity to go deeper, right?
Yeah.
And so, but in my life, that opportunity to go deeper isn't painful. It's like, oh, here we go, down the slide again. I wonder what this adventure is going to be about. Because that's what we're here for. I would say that when we live that life of loving ourselves, being in acceptance of ourselves, forgiving ourselves, if that's what feels like the right thing, we do, interestingly enough, have influence over others. But it's not because that's the reason we're doing it. is to change someone else. But that energy that we emit, again, what science tells us, that electromagnetic field that we're emitting, that shifts the field, also shifts the consciousness of those around us. And so miracles can happen, but you can't do it for that reason. You do it for yourself.
And that's sort of the interesting irony, the old saying, you can't change other people. It's true, but it's also not true. Because when you change yourself, you change that vibration within, you're going to change people around you. They're either going to want to get closer because they like that new vibration, or they're going to run. They're going to run.
That's right.
And the same thing with, the sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Well, the truth is that if we choose to let them hurt us, they will. They will. If we choose, which is the core of what we do here on the program, give people choices and knowledge of those choices to help make their dreams come true. And we are constantly asking these kinds of questions of ourselves and of others, and when we don't, the thought that occurred to me was, when we don't go through this introspection, life becomes very exhausting.
Yes.
We are putting out a lot of, we'll just use the term negative energy.
Yes.
However that manifests, there comes a point at which it begins to manifest in the physical body via a lot of different ways.
Yes.
And some would say, well, cancer is one of those. Yeah, well, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, list goes on. Matter of fact, I observe when I used to walk up and down our local Main Street, State Street in Santa Barbara, and I would see some of these old men and old women hunched over like a question mark. The question would come to me, what is it that they're still carrying around that causes them to be hunched over like that? And my father, before his passing, he had the beginnings of that hunch. He was also 91 when he passed. He'd lived a long, good life, maybe hard sometimes. But I'm sure there were things that he was still carrying around that he wishes he could have let go of. And I vowed that I'm not going to become that old man with the question mark. But as you say, I guess it is important to take a different perspective on that introspection and not dread it like, oh God, now what am I going to have to deal with? But more,
because then you'll manifest that, of course.
Manifest it, exactly. Tezikiah Gabriel is my guest, Executive Director of Pathway to Peace. Pathwaytopeace.org is the website, and you're listening to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host here on Tell Me Your Story. We're talking with our very special guest, returning guest, Tezikiah Gabriel, Executive Director for Pathways to Peace, and pathwaystopeace.org is the website. We're talking, of course, about a lot of different things, including, of course, the 40th anniversary of the Day of Peace that was celebrated in September on the 21st. And every year, obviously for the past 40 years, Tezikiah is Executive Director, as I mentioned, of the Pathways to Peace. It's a UN Peace Messenger organization in consultation with
ECOSOC.
ECOSOC. Thank you. Nice way to phrase that rather than spelling it out. ECOSOC. And she also works in partnership with Peacebuilders locally and globally to build a culture of peace. And she's also the owner of a consulting for Gabriel Associates and works with mission-based organizations to create relevant, viable, and sustainable workplace environments that affect real change in our world. I know that that's part of the equation. And I have to say, here in California, there is an effort to, for example, hold the oil companies responsible for high gas prices. All right, now, without going into those details, one of the solutions is to give every citizen in the state or every person who bought gas between 2015 and 2016 a little coin. And I'm thinking, you want to make a difference? You really want to show us that you really care? And of course, I'm speaking to the governor. Lower the price. Don't give me money. Lower the price. Now, of course, now you're talking about price control and getting into all kinds of other minutia that, that we're talking about. Or maybe another perspective for each one of us is, and if they take advantage of it, there's nothing we could do about it anyway. Recognize that the price is the price. Pay it or don't pay it. Your choice. You have a choice. It's not mandatory. And I know people will argue that, well, but how am I supposed to get to work? Well, guess what? There are lots of ways to get from point A to point B. How creative are you? This is why we talk about choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. So we encourage people to consider other possibilities, not just for transportation. That's not the point of what I'm saying. It's to take a different perspective on things. How do you share that with people in terms of taking a different perspective on the outer world that, again, we have no control of, but it sounds to me like what we do have control of is our perspective.
That's right. That's right. Well, I think just you've done it. I think, first of all, just having an awareness of it is the first step in any kind of healing, right? Is that we become aware that we might have some faulty thinking here, or that the belief systems we grew up with, I'll even expand, or the habits we've developed, that there may be some other ways to think and other ways to behave, and to open up our worldview and allow ourselves to generate additional ideas, new ideas, innovative ideas, explore, discover, research, do what you need to do. I mean, we are so kind of in need of liberation from old belief systems that I know I've shared with friends that it took me a full year where I deliberately pulled out every belief. And I wasn't using Byron Katie's The Work at that point, but it was kind of like that. And I do recommend that work because I had to ask myself, I thought that was true, but is it really true? Is it really true? And of course, what I ended up doing was stripping away a whole lot of old social programming that had become a part of my belief system and got down to like 3 core beliefs, that we are divine, that love is the major driver of all creation, that we have choice and we co-create our own destiny. And so everything else had to go away. And so I think that kind of personal assessment, which doesn't have to, interestingly enough, it wasn't painful, but it was a very logical approach to examining beliefs, and was ultimately very liberating. And so recognize that this work we do that we call work doesn't have to be hard, as we've already said, but really is about liberation, freeing ourselves from the things that have held us back, that have kept us from becoming the people that we are intended to be, fully divine, fully in co-creation, fully manifesting goodness and kindness and compassion and peace. and unity in all of those things that we desire. And as you said, Richard, fully capable of manifesting our dreams. And so our heart's desires.
Mm.
Yeah.
Tezikiah Gabriel is my guest. We're talking about peace. We're trying to bring about the peace within ourselves so as to bring about the peace outside of ourselves throughout the world. And Tezikiah is also an ordained minister who conducts interfaith and intercultural ceremonies and works with individuals and groups to empower the divine within each one of us. And you're listening to Tell Me Your Story. Pathwaystopeace.org is the website. My guest is Tezikiah Gabriel. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and we are having quite the conversation as we did the last time. And I want to ask you in this segment here about this has come to mind many times in previous interviews. The soul,
Yes,
of self, of community, of country, of the world. And that's a lot of different levels to deal with. I sometimes wonder, and sometimes speaking about a company, a business, a place of work or worship or what have you, education, what is the soul of, and how is it doing? Is it healthy? That kind of assessment. So from the standpoint of wanting to shift the perspective, what's your perspective, your observation of, we'll keep it a little bit more locally, the soul of the United States? Is it in good shape, or are we really, because I think that what we hear on the outside is more from only the few who get the loud speaker, the bullhorn and that kind of thing. Whereas the majority of us, we don't speak out. We're not really heard because we don't feel the need to be out there shouting from the rooftops that here's this problem, here's my pain, here's my hurt, here's the injustice, and so on and so forth. It's more the minority that seems that we hear from. So what's your perspective in regards to, shall we say, the health of the soul of the United States? And ordinarily I would say of America, but that encompasses the three sections of the continent: Canada, United States,
right.
Mexico, of course, well, South America.
Yes. Yes, I always correct folks to be inclusive of the other Americas. Speak to the United States. Boy, that is such a beautiful question, Richard. And so the first thing that comes to mind for me is that the soul of the United States is just fine. Mm. It's just fine. It is evolving, and what appears to be death and destruction and all of those things are not powerful enough to inflict injury upon the soul of the United States. Are there issues that need to be addressed? Absolutely. And they all stem from the belief that we are separate from one another, from ourselves, from divine source, from the cosmos, from the planet, that we are separate. And of course, what the science verifies for us today, along with, as we said, the spiritual teachings and indigenous wisdom, is we are connected. We've never been separate. And so we need to claim that unity with all that exists, including the soul of the United States. So I believe that that there is a greater plan, that I, of course, don't have access to all of it, no matter how powerful I may think I am. I laugh at myself at times when I think I can control everything, and instead I put it back. And it's like, yes, it's true. I really am not God. And so I will then trust that if I stand up, that if I am representing my true self, that I am led by my own inner knowledge of who I am in connection and in co-creation with the divine, that I am making a positive difference. And I am doing that with many others. One of the privileges I happen to have, Richard, is that I happen to be a part of a whole field of people who are building peace on the planet that do see unitive consciousness as a reality, the existential reality we're living in, and that we know that shifting worldview and mindset is what needs to occur to turn the dial so that all of us see peace, that we are still experiencing underneath it all in the soul of the United States. There exists peace, there exists unity, there exists harmony. And so that's what comes to me in this moment. It's not going to be very satisfying with everything we see and hear and read about the polarization, but the soul will always survive because it is divinely infused with love and peace and light. And so therefore, whatever skirmishes occur here on the planet will not destroy the soul of the universe, the cosmos, the planet, or the United States.
Tezikiah Gabriel is my guest. Pathwaystopeace.org is the website. We encourage you to go there as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and I want to thank you so much, Tezikiah Gabriel, for joining us here on the program and sharing this conversation about peace and going more in depth into the aspects thereof. It's on the one hand, it's heartwarming. On the other hand, there is a certain level of, 64 and I've done all this work and now I got to get to work again. But you know what? The beauty of it is that as we take on the challenge, as some of us will perceive it as, of going within and listening to that still small voice and peeling away one layer of the onion at a time, you don't do it all at once, that the joy that is reaped from doing that introspection, it can be a wonderful thing. And we thank you for sharing that with us, your perspective as well as your story here on Tell Me Your Story.
Thank you, Richard. It's been an honor and a delight to be with you. Thank you so much.
I am going to ask you those same three questions I asked you last month. But
okay,
before
let's see if I change my answers.
Exactly,
right?
Could change. But before I do, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at those times at richarddugan.com with podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, as well as on YouTube where you can watch these conversations, and I hope that you will. We also ask that you subscribe, if you would please, and then click notifications so that next time I post a conversation such as this one, you'll be notified. We also want to remind you that the book Choices, 5 Steps for Life is now published. It is now available as of September of this year. And go to Amazon.com to get your hardcover, paperback, or Kindle copy. I will be making the Audible version shortly, so hang in there. It's coming soon. We appreciate all those of you who have purchased and look forward to those. If you haven't yet gotten your copy, please do so. It's not an expensive little book, but I am very proud of the fact that I finished it. That is probably the biggest thing for me, is that I actually finished it. We also hope that if you can financially support the work that we are doing, you'd like to be a part of it in that fashion, we would be gratefully appreciative. We have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. We have a link on the website on the homepage, richarddugan.com. You can click on it. It'll take you right there. And make sure you put in the email address richard@richarddugan.com. If they ask for it, they may already be putting it in there through that link. And whatever support you can give us, we would be gratefully appreciative. We also ask once again that you take some time to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm place and listen to that still, small voice. With all of that being said, we now go to our three final questions for a special guest, returning guest. And the first of those three is, who is Tezikiah Gabriel?
Who am I? I am a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, a human being on a spiritual journey of discovery of my own true nature. And I am honored and delighted every day to be here at this particular time doing this work on our planet.
What gets you up in the morning?
The excitement of discovery of what my day is going to bring me. I know I must have said this last time, but I begin every day with help me to remember to bring love into every interaction. And so then I just see how that works throughout my day, and I live in anticipation of the net results of that.
And finally, what was your best day?
My best day. Well, it would have to be, I'm always in my glory when I'm with my family. And so it would have had to have been a day at the lake with all of the little kids in the lake swimming, all of the adults gathering and laughing, eating together, those big potluck feasts, and being in total love of everyone there and in joy of what's taking place.
Mm. Well, Tezikiah Gabriel, thank you once again for joining us here on the program, and we will touch base from time to time. We'll have you back again to talk more about this. We won't wait until September 21st. Each year, we'll have you on before then as well to have these conversations. I think they're important. We need to be talking about them. We need to be reflecting upon them, and beginning the process of making a difference in the world, one person at a time. And that person starts with each one of us. And thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. And thank you, everyone out there.
And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to all. Jeanette, I'm still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.